The Sisters of Dorley by Alyson Greaves. Read by Robin Nolan. Chapter 10. Butterflies. Content warning for this chapter, discussion of abusive families. 2019, October 25th. Friday. Paige is waiting for them outside Christine's room, holding her clutch in front of her and tapping her fingers on the leather, leaning against the wall with one raised foot, the skirt of her butterfly patterned dress flaring out against her elevated thigh. When she hears them approach, she pushes away from the wall, and the spiderwebs of gemstones in her stockings catch the ugly yellow light from the sconces and throw it out in rainbow colours at the walls, the floor, and Christine and Faye themselves. Christine's used to Paige, used to her effortless elegance and frankly unfair level of beauty. But Faye's sharp intake of breath and embarrassed squeak remind her of how she used to be around her, back when Paige was flourishing and Christine was still learning the basics. Just once, it would be nice to get that kind of reaction out of someone. "Hey Paige," Christine says, taking the hand Paige offers and squeezing it gently. "You okay?" "I'm fine," Paige says quietly. "Nell just set me off. Abby, Vicky, they brought me back. I'm sorry. This is all my fault." "No," Christine says, "it's Nell's. I'm going to talk to Abby about her." She unlocks her door and kicks it open, wishing she hadn't left so many of Paige's dresses in a messy pile. "Don't say it, Paige. I know. I'll take better care of your shit." "It's fine," Paige says airily, retrieving the dress bags she hung from the light fitting in the corridor and throwing them into the bed as she marches in. "I have new things for you. For both of you." "Me as well," Christine says. "Yes, you as well. You need to change. You have sad girl on your dress." "No offense, Faye." Faye just bites her lip and shakes her head. The reality of Paige, 6 foot tall, incredible dress sense, Instagram looks and practical attitude can be overwhelming for people that haven't yet been exposed to her, and that's before she dresses them, puts makeup on them, or starts enthusing about her latest hyperfixation. Christine, by contrast, comes in a neat, instantly comprehensible little package. Just add anxiety. Paige sits at Christine's vanity and starts sorting through her makeup. "You don't mind if we give Faye a few things, do you?" she says. "Eyeliner and stuff? You have a lot. As long as they're not already open, you can do with it what you like. Aunt B added me to the accounts." Meaning Christine can order as much makeup and as many clothes as she feels she needs, within reason. A privilege Paige never had, which is probably why Dorley Hall is still intact and not, for example, crumbling under an apocalyptic pile of dresses. Paige nods and continues dividing Christine's makeup into piles. "How did you get up here anyway? You didn't just come up the main stairs." Christine laughs and pulls off her dress, which, yes, does turn out to have sad girl on it, just under her bust, where she couldn't see. "We came up the back stairs, the ones that come out by the old pantry. Aren't those normally locked?" Damn, of course Paige knows that. Below the sis floors, most of the doors are kept locked. Christine and Paige got their biometrics added to the access list a few months ago, but the stairs from the ground to the second floor host easily broken single-pane, unbarred windows that lead into a short drop into an old water tank in the courtyard. Thus are linked to Aunt B and the senior staff only. Not even Abby can get in. An uncomfortable reminder that Faye is still a prisoner. Christine and Paige, though they might have official access to everywhere under Dorley's roof, can still walk out the front door. "They were unlocked," Christine says, smiling and dropping her soiled dress onto the hamper by the bed. Paige turns a skeptical eye on Christine, which only briefly flickers down her chest. Gotcha, Christine thinks. The old game of near-naked chicken. She doesn't get to win often. "They're never unlocked," Paige says. "Ask her," Christine says, who's been sitting on the beanbag chair and pulling her legs up under her. Both of them look at Faye, who is having multiple reactions simultaneously. To the size of the room, possibly, the second-year floor rooms are much bigger than the ones that Faye and her cohort will have moved into, and their own bathrooms. Or perhaps still to Paige, goddess of the second floor. Faye says, "Should I be looking away?" "Why?" "You're naked," Christine, Paige says, rolling her eyes. "Underwear means not naked," Christine protests, twanging a bra strap. "What were you saying in the kitchen about bombarding these poor girls with new experiences too quickly?" "Oh, sorry, Faye, you're not used to this?" "Only when Faye starts, but then she looks at Paige and clams up. "Only when you're with someone you're about to be intimate with?" Christine asks, choosing the most tiresomely appropriate phrasing. Must be a latent sponsor gene activating. Faye nods vigorously. "Sorry, habit. I'm just too used to doing whatever around other girls." "But we're not Don't say it," Paige says quickly. "I'm sorry," Faye blurts out, looking at the floor, her demeanor almost instantly regressing. Come here, Christine says, standing and stepping forward, beckoning the girl into her embrace and feeling her breast compress her chest by phase. A slightly novel feeling after all this time. It's okay, Faye, but you need to watch out for that. I know I let it go downstairs, but it was just us. But Paige and me, we're women. So's Vicky, so's Abby, so's Indira. So are most of the people around here. I know, Faye says, slightly muffled. It's just hard to get used to. Then stop letting your brain override your eyes, Paige suggests and poses. Do you see a man here? Christine glances at her to see what made Faye's eyes widen and her breath catch. Put those away, Paige, she says. You'll have someone's eye out. Paige pulls the bust of her dress back into place and sticks her tongue out at Christine, says the girl running around in her bra. Ignore Paige, she's a monster. Rude. And this is something Aunt B will want you to get used to, Christine says, stepping out of the hug. Paige, modesty restored, unpacks one of the dresses. It doesn't come easily to begin with, but she will want you to feel comfortable around women. And just so you know, she wags a finger, 3 girls can change clothes in the same room without anything erotic happening. Paige snorts, amused. Now, go see the tall lady. She has a dress for you. I do, Paige says, holding out something red and black. While Paige dresses and gilds Faye, Christine carefully removes her makeup and starts reapplying the basics, which after a week of practice is something she can manage well enough without supervision. How did you know? Faye says, in a tone of voice that she suggests she's remaining very still while Paige works on something sensitive near her face. Know what? Christine says, rubbing primer into her jawline, then idly remembering when, in another life, it felt scratchy under her fingers. That you're a woman. Remember when I said it was a choice? I chose. It was either that or fight Dorley, and that meant fighting Indira, who I already loved even back then. She was pretty much the first person ever to show me kindness, after all. Christine dabs under her eyes, grateful that the dark circles from last week have receded. And what would I be fighting her for? The chance to remain that stupid kid? Screw that guy. Womanhood is both an identity and a social position, Paige says, more slowly than usual. She's concentrating on Faye's eyes. I discovered quite quickly that I enjoyed occupying the social position of womanhood. Actually, being a woman in my head is a little more conditional, but one day, out on campus, chatting with someone after class, I realized he was responding to me as a man would to a woman. And I was fine with that, she shrugs. Sometimes you don't need to actively choose a gender. You can just be you and accessorize. Ask her again next week, Christine suggests. She'll change her answer. Then there's Vicky, Paige continues. She's simply a girl. You mean, Faye says, she was already trans when she got here? She says she wasn't, Christine says, and I believe her. I've shown her every egg meme I can find, and she said none of them were relatable. If you're looking for a big moment, Paige says, where you suddenly realize, ooh, I'm a girl, then you may be disappointed. For some of us, it never happens. For others, it happens gradually. And some of us make it happen, Christine says firmly. Paige, I think I've done all I can without making my face actively worse. Okay, she says. Good timing. Stand for me, please, Faye. Faye obliges, and she looks like she would be biting her lip if it wouldn't spoil her lipstick. Paige has her in a knee-length black dress and a red trim around the bust and hemline, and has done her face to match. Bex is going to love that dress, Christine says, and enjoys the burn on Faye's cheeks as Paige guides her away from the vanity and over to the wardrobe, which opens out into 2 full-length mirrors. Paige, prescient, is supporting Faye by a shoulder, so when the little girl staggers on her borrowed heels, knocked off her balance by her own reflection, she doesn't fall. Is that me? Faye says, waving experimentally at herself. What do you think? Christine says, as Paige grins the smug but enchanting grin she always does when she has successfully inflicted fashion on a fresh victim. Incredible, Faye says slowly, unable to keep a smile from spreading across her face. I think we have another girl on our hands, Christine, Paige says, watching Faye smooth her elegant dress down to her hips. Christine steps up from the desk chair, grabs Paige's free hand and pulls her away from Faye. Now, make me beautiful, she says. Your wish? Paige says, tightening her grip on Christine's hand and yanking her over to the sofa, pressing her down into the cushion. My command. Faye says something muffled about needing to pee and shuts herself in the bathroom, leaving Paige and Christine alone. And Christine wants to make a smart comment, but Paige is already frowning, clearly daunted by the sheer amount of work ahead of her. Paige, already taller already than Christine and sitting at a higher elevation, leans down over her such that Christine has to look up, and puts the angle of their faces rather closer than Christine's been used to recently. Paige's slow, steady breath warms her face, The woman's skin still has no flaws. Not even a pimple. Unfair. She does, however, have a long strand of hair falling down across her face, and no amount of blowing upwards will taint it. So Christine reaches carefully past Paige's busy hands and tucks it back behind her ear, where it belongs. Thank you, Paige says as she paints. It was in your way. Paige's mouth twitches, amused. Not for that. What for then? For Nell. For making sure I was okay. For helping to get Pippa under control. Christine tries to smile, but Paige puts a warning finger under the end of her mouth. Don't mess with art. That was mainly Abby and Vicky, though. Paige stops brushing, pulls back. They wouldn't have been there if not for you. They would have. They're my friends because they're your friends, Christine. Abby, especially, would barely know my name without you. People coalesce around you. You must have noticed. Paige, are you really okay? Yes, she says, nodding to herself and fetching another palette. Just feeling like I maybe concentrated on the wrong thing. Paige, it's okay. Maybe you have to learn this from me, and I have to learn something from you. I can give you lessons in fucking everything up if you like. Quiet, Paige scolds and leans in quickly to kiss her above the hairline. I'm working. Yes, boss, Christine whispers. Why the kiss? The makeup doesn't take long, and while Christine inspects her painted face, she'd almost forgotten how good Paige is when she really goes at it. At the party the other week was nothing compared to this. Paige retrieves a new dress from the bed and lifts it off the protective bag. Shit, Christine says, finally witnessing the dress in all its glory. No, Paige, I can't. The dress is not only more elaborate and brightly colored than Christine's old dress, it's just like Paige's with the same cut and butterfly pattern, but in contrasting colors. A robe for a goddess presented to a commoner. You want me to wear the same thing as you? Paige, please, seriously, there's no way I can pull it off. Paige hangs the dress up on the hook by the bathroom door and carefully cups Christine's cheek in her hand, a forefinger on her jaw, a thumb tucked gently under her chin. Christine's skin glows hot under the contact. You are beautiful, Paige says, smiling. How many times must I tell you before you believe me? Maybe a couple of hundred more, Christine says, eyeing the dress. It's incredible, she has to admit. It's just that it requires someone like Paige to pull it off. I'm not taking no for an answer, Paige says. Arms up. Christine knows she's lost. Any real resistance would be token anyway. No Indira to save her today. She complies, and Paige drops the dress over her head, carefully guides it past her face, smooths the fabric across Christine's bust and belly, and billows the skirt around her thighs. Wordlessly, she hands Christine a pack of jeweled stockings, and when Christine sits on the stool and starts rolling them up her left leg, Paige starts work on her right, hooking them into place and pulling out the creases in the nylon, resting a hand for a moment on the inside of Christine's thigh, but moving it before she can comment. Shoes are next, low heel, thank God, and Christine slips them on and stands them up, her heart already in her chest at the thought of seeing herself in the mirrors, an imitation Paige next to the real thing. Sorry I took so long, Faye says, ducking around the bathroom door, back into the room. I'm not used to redoing my, She pauses in miming the action of tucking when she sees Christine standing uncertain by the sofa, Paige's steadying hand on the small of her back. Faye, Paige says, what do you think? But Faye's only response is a sharp breath and a high-pitched noise. Paige giggles, proud once again. Maybe Christine can get that reaction out of some people sometimes, with help. Hey, Faye whispers when they descend the stairs. The normal stairs, the ones that they, bar Faye, are actually allowed to use, to the ground floor. When we see Bex, you should call her Rebecca. Oh, Christine says, managing to tear her eyes away from her reflection in the windows. Paige did a really good job. Bex is... It's my name for her. Does she have a name for you? Paige asks, exchanging looks with Christine. Faye blushes and says, looking down to the bust of her borrowed dress. She calls me Effie. That, Christine says, is ridiculously adorable. They round the corner at the bottom of the stairs down to the main foyer, their shoes tapping on the tile, catching glimpses of themselves from the night-dark windows, and in Christine's case, resisting the urge to pose. The kitchen comes up all too soon, and while Paige fiddles with a notoriously twitchy biometric lock on the door, it gets weird when it has a lot of fingerprints to process. There are a lot of people in Dorley Hall tonight, and Christine takes Faye gently inside. How are you feeling, Faye? Good, I think. Confident? Definitely not. Ready to see your sponsor again? Definitely not. Let me text Abby then. Ask her to keep her away from you for a little bit. All right. Christine, a veteran telephone operator, texts with one hand and and with the other turns Faye towards her reflection in the large glass doors that lead out to campus. Catches the girl smiling at herself again. Feeling like a girl yet? Faye examining herself in the glass. Maybe. Good enough. Was it Paige? Faye asks. Was it Paige what? Who you used to... Oh, I understand, and I'm not telling you. You seem close. We are, but we're also pretty different. But ready to go, Paige says, forcing Faye into silence. Christine nods. By unspoken agreement, Christine and Paige bracket Faye protectively as they pass through the kitchen and into the brightly lit dining hall. A mere 10 seconds or so off seeing her own reflection in the window and feeling quite good about herself, Christine almost wants everyone to instantly fall silent and gaze at the three of them in awe and wonder. But the desire dissipates the very moment she feels eyes on her. She feels suddenly, clownishly unfeminine next to Paige, back in her accustomed position, and wants nothing more than to scuttle over their table and hide from everyone, bury her nerves in wine, butterflies in her belly, butterflies on her back. Indira, bless her and curse her equally, wolf whistles, triggering a wave of imitations from the room. Aunt B stands up from her chair at the central table, silencing the hubbub without having to say a word, and approaches them, causing Christine's heart to cease its embarrassed bounce and switch to a nervous one. Christine, she says quietly. A quick chat? Yeah, Christine says. Oh, give me a second. She points subtly as she can to Paige and Faye, splitting off and heading for a group of girls at a table at another room, on the other side of the room. Sitting with a few sponsors Christine recognizes, but no Nell. A girl who can only be Rebecca greets Faye with a gentle kiss on the cheek and a careful hug that preserves the lines of Faye's dress. They release each other, and Rebecca talks excitedly with Paige, and while Faye turns brighter and brighter shades of red and glances around the room for something less effusive to look at, she finds Christine, who gives her a small wave and then nods to Aunt B to say that she's ready for whatever she has to say. Sit down, please, Aunt B says, walking Christine over to the kitchen table and pulling out a chair. Wordlessly, Christine complies. You took a second year out of the permitted area without consulting her sponsor, and you involve Paige. Why? There are several baskets of breadsticks on the table, ready to be delivered to the dining hall when the dinner proper commences. Christine fetches a breadstick from the nearest one, turns it over in her fingers, and bites off a small piece and chews it. She needs to do something with her hands while she thinks, and she can't have a cigarette. Remember how Francesca was with Paige, she says. Francesca, Paige's sponsor, remained hostile to a charge through most of their second year, for reasons none of them could understand, and it took Paige petitioning Aunt B directly to get her removed from duty. Paige hasn't had an official sponsor for months. Nell is worse. The other sponsors have noted that Nell's approach is somewhat antagonistic, Aunt B says. More than somewhat, Christine says. She's triggering Faye. Whether on purpose or by accident, I don't know, but that makes her either cruel or incompetent. Take your pick as to which is worse. Triggering her how? May I be blunt? For the moment. We fucked up, Christine says, and breaks her breadstick in half. And I know I'm not trained in this, but I know my own life, and I'm guessing that Faye comes from an abusive family. Assuming she needed to come here at all, which is a decision out of my hands and over my head, she needed a completely different sponsor. Someone capable of dealing with those kinds of triggers. She needed an Indira, someone able to redirect her anger without turning to irritation into outbursts. She got Nell, who seems like another Francesca. Faye told me stories about Nell, how she helped her early on, and yeah, sure, well, she conceptualizes it that way. What she described to me... Look, I know we have to do what we have to do, but there are ways to do it without... She stumbles over her words, trails off, struggles to express her thoughts without implicating the foundations of the program, something which Aunt B is rather attached to, and so, if she's honest, is she. I thought you were being blunt. Say what you need to say, Christine. Fuck it. I think we took a traumatized girl, or boy, or whoever, and recreated the circumstances of her abuse. Her sponsor, the stand-in for her parents, shouts and yells and locks her up and even knocks her down, seemingly at random. That's not reform, that's just changing the wall color in the purgatory. I'm amazed. No, I'm dumbfounded she made it through the first year without washing out. Or worse, and that would have been a tragedy, because Aunt B, she is such a sweet kid. A degree of hostility, even outright aggression, can be warranted during the early stages of the program. Can be. Case-by-case assessment, right? You didn't get a Christine out of my raw material by using the same methods that got you an Eddie, yeah? I think Nell went in angry, took it out on Faye, and never stopped. Or maybe she saw something in Faye that made her think acting like that was the right move. Like I said, cruel or incompetent. And I shouldn't need to point it out, Faye isn't in the early stages of the program. She's 2 months into her second year, and her sponsor, who is supposed to be her friend at this point, is still triggering her. You know what? I think she reformed despite us, not because of us. Maybe her friendship with Rebecca saved her. Maybe Rebecca's sponsors too, but not Nell. Christine throws both halves of the breadstick down on the table. Look, Paige and I both come from homes that were emotionally abusive. Occasionally physically so. We both responded very poorly to raised voices when we came here, and I think it's no surprise that of the two of us, it's me that doesn't flinch anymore that when somebody shouts, and Paige who does. Because I got Indira, and she got Francesca, and Faye got Nell. B picks up one of the scattered halves of breadsticks and regards it. Are you done? I might as well be. Yes. She smiles. Thank you, Christine, she says. Christine, realizing she stood halfway out of her chair with both palms planted on the table, sits down sharply and says, A good sponsor must know how to tailor her approach to her charge, Aunt B says. At the very least, she must know when to withdraw. I will talk to Nell. I'm not sure I agree with your assessments regarding her conduct during her first year, although I will look into it, I promise, and I will be quite thorough. But she does seem overdue for a re-evaluation of her methods. We're having staffing problems. Were you aware? No, not really. It's hard to assign appropriate sponsors at the best of times, and normally Maria would be taking a more active monitoring role, but with a large intake this year and the amicable departure of several of our more experienced sponsors, and with her research commitments to the university, she simply hasn't had the time and we haven't had the people. I can't solve the latter problem, but I'm going to solve the former. I'm going to assign Indira as monitor. Indira, Christine says. My Indira? I mean, obviously she's great, but do you believe in the program, Christine? Christine, taken aback, says, yes, automatically. And you're making progress in the areas we discussed. Yes, every morning. Then I think you, like Paige, have evolved beyond the need for a sponsor. Don't you? Oh, yes? Don't get ahead of yourself. You haven't graduated yet, but you have a strong support network, and you will, I imagine, continue to see Indira socially. Yes, definitely. She's my sister, Christine adds defensively. She hates that she's fallen into exactly the sort of relationship she was supposed to have with her sponsor, that her friend group is composed entirely of people inside Dorley, that she is, as Steph said, a true believer. But she is what they made her. The other choices were worse. She's my family. Of course, Aunt B says, and Christine could swear there's genuine pride in her voice. It still doesn't always feel good to please Aunt B, but it's probably better than the alternative. Indira's new role will, of course, come with a pay raise. Good for Dira, Christine mutters, still coming to terms with the concept. No sponsor. Very nearly free. I do hope so, B says, placing the breadstick half carefully on the table. And I'd be interested in your read on Faye. How is she progressing? She's a sweet kid, Christine says, again distracted. I mean, how do you think her gender is developing? Out of everyone, perhaps bar her friend Rebecca, you've had the most intimate conversation with her. Christine clears her head, pictures Faye trying to kiss her, talking nervously about Bex, being dumbfounded by her reflection. I think she's warming to womanhood. Aunt B nods. You have an instinct for sponsorship, it seems. You proved quite adept at gaining that girl's trust. Hey, Christine says, I wasn't trying to gain her trust. I know. She was just hurting, and I needed to help her. Aunt B smiles. How much you've changed, Christine. Christine doesn't get to sit down straight away. Indira, not content with announcing her presence by a wolf whistle when they first came down, makes Christine stand at the side of the room with Paige to show off their matching dresses and makeup, positioning them under one of the more dramatic landscape paintings. Dira busies herself with arranging them both, conveniently too distracted to notice Christine's non-verbal but increasingly desperate pleas to get her out of this obligation. So Christine acquiesces, but when she and Paige pose with each other, Paige gracefully, Christine awkwardly, It's not just Indira's flash that goes off. Make sure you edit the pictures before you post them, Aunt B calls out. Christine catches his son asking Dira why that will be necessary, and Dira starts off rattling off a practice line about Dorley Hall's draconian privacy policies. Christine misses the end of it because Vicky starts yelling out suggestions for more elaborate policies, and Paige, clearly having enormous fun, shamelessly abuses the leverage granted her by her extra height to maneuver Christine in position for each one, waiting for everyone to get their photos before moving on to the next. Did you plan this? Christine whispers to Paige as the taller girl leans down to kiss her on the cheek. Thanks, Vicky, for that idea. No, Paige says, her breath flowing lightly across Christine's face and down her neck, igniting a warmth in Christine's chest that was only part memory. But it's exciting, isn't it? Being the center of attention. I want to die. You big baby, Paige says, and nips her once more on the cheek before straightening up. Christine's fingers twitch. She wants to rub her face where Paige kissed her, but it's almost everyone looking on knows they have a history together, and she doesn't want to give them the satisfaction. There's almost definitely a betting pool on whether or not they'll get back together. Not that they were necessarily together in the way that, say, Vicky and Lorna are, because the sponsors are just like that. Now do Charlie's Angels, Maria shouts from the next table. Her face is already a little red, and she's being lightly supported by Adam's sponsor Edie. With her nightly obligations to Aaron discharged, she's been at the wine. What's that? Christine yells back, mostly to be annoying. Maria, the older sponsor, can be prickly about her age. Paige says loudly, we need a third. And before Christine can protest that A, she genuinely doesn't know what a Charlie's Angels pose even is, and B, she would quite like to sit down and get a chance to recover from the events of the last 20 minutes, Vicky's joined them, interposing herself with pointing finger guns at the room. Christine follows her lead, but when the flashes of 24 phone cameras die down, she breaks formation and slumps into an open chair before anyone can make her do anything even more embarrassing, although she struggles to imagine what they could possibly pick that would be worse. You okay? Abby mouths at her from across the table, and Christine nods that yes, despite everything, she's fine. Or she will be, once her heart retreats from her throat. You look amazing, Abby mouths. Christine smiles, and temporarily too tired to lean forward and talk normally, forms a heart with her fingers, earning a delighted beam from Abby. She permits herself a moment to close her eyes. She doesn't know what to conclude about her conversation with Aunt B. Sure, Nell's going to be re-evaluated, whatever that means, and Indira's going to be assigned to watch over the sponsors. But Christine's come away uncomfortable with the uncomfortable impression that she's being recruited. Was this how it was for Pippa? Did she one day show concern for someone and then suddenly find herself facing down Aunt B, congratulating for her empathy and implying that one day she may have a productive future in boy acquisition and torture? Christine's actually ahead of the game there. She's managed to put someone in the basement before she even graduates the program. Granted, not a boy, and granted, situation normal, all fucked up, but still, Christine is already, unofficially, recruiting for Dorley. A buzz against her hip. Her phone. She extracts it from her purse and finds a text from Abby, who is waving her own at Christine with what she probably thinks is an extremely clandestine look on her face. Abby, delete these messages after you read them, please. Christine, duh. Abby, Steph is okay. I mean, he's struggling. He briefly asked me not to call him anything before relenting and reverting to Steph. Dysphoria is kicking him in the ass, and I feel pretty bad about being dressed up in front of him. We talked a lot about Melissa, a bit more about Dorley. He still has ethical concerns, and we agreed what to tell Pippa. He's totally and completely cowed by her threats to tell his sister he's dead. As long as she has that to hold over him, he'll do whatever she says. Right. Good. There's still Pippa to think about, though. Clearly having a hard time. You want to help her too, Chrissy? You're so kind. I'm proud of you. Please don't. I kind of don't want to be praised right now. Just the act of being nice to the kid, Faye, made Aunt B's eyes light up with little cartoon hearts in them. Now she wants to recruit me to be a sponsor. No good deed goes unpunished around here. You shouldn't worry about that. When you're out of the program, you're free to choose. She might put some pressure on you to accept a sponsoring position if she really does want you, but you can say no and she'll mostly back off. Post-grad benefits, freedoms, etc. aren't conditional on you doing what she asks. Don't forget our stated goals. When you leave, you are free, with restrictions only for your own safety and the continued secrecy of the program. To quote Steph, I forget you're a true believer. Oh shush, you are too. I like to think I maintain a healthy dose of skepticism. Lol. Now you're just being mean. Oh, before I forget, Steph's cohort have their first medical examinations tomorrow. Oh shit. Isn't that kind of early? It's not out of spec, but it's earlier than usual by a couple of weeks, yes. The sponsors as a group have some concerns about the wilder elements of this cohort and have switched to the slightly more alacritous track. I'm worried about Steph again now. Screw Pippa. Maybe you should find a way to go see him soon. I don't know, Abs. It's way scarier visiting the bedrooms compared to the cells, and there are no hiding spots. And the locks in the emergency exit take forever to turn over. You really do know a lot about the security system here. The point is, if I get stuck, it's game over. I'll try hitting him up in consensus, though. Okay. He likes you, you know. He goes a bit pink when he says your name. I mean, I am a vision. I mean it when you say you look gorgeous tonight, by the way. Have confidence in yourself. I refuse. Christine, how many times will we have to tell you you're beautiful before you believe us? Christine, couple hundred more. Across the table, Abby grins at her and taps exaggeratedly on her phone, erasing the conversation. Christine resolves to check it later, make sure she did it properly. Can't trust anyone's OPSEC but her own. Christine, Hassan says, shifting his chair closer to hers now that she's done with texting. She gives him her attention. He gives her his broad smile, the one she's willing to bet Indira fell in love with long before she came to Dorley. How have you been? Cruel and unusual punishment aside, of course. It takes Christine a second to realize he's talking about the ridiculous poses Indira, Paige, and Vicky made her pull, and not, for example, the cruel and unusual punishments that are inflicted with some regularity under the dining hall. I'm doing pretty good, actually, she says, and nods gratefully at Indira, who is pouring Christine a large glass of white wine. First year linguistics is good. Early days, I know, but so far it's everything I hoped. I'm glad, he says. This one, he intercepts Indira on her way back to a chair and hefts her onto his lap. She squeals. Said you were doing a lot better this year. The fiction, as far as Hassan is concerned, is that Christine's first year as a student at Saints, her second at Dorley, first one above ground, was a foundation year. Hassan thinks that Indira discovered Christine at a support group on campus, struggling with her transition, and took her under her wing. Dira argued for and got Christine a place in Dorley Hall, the residence for women from disadvantaged backgrounds, and essentially adopted her. There she could study for her foundation year in peace, surrounded by supportive friends, and without the abusive family life and dysphoric depression that affected her during her A-levels. It's not a million miles from the truth. Christine was a mess when Dira first picked her up. The deception and their particular choice of story make her uncomfortable, though. You look fantastic, by the way, Hassan's saying. Really stunning. That dress is amazing. And I know this isn't something you're supposed to say, but you were so worried about it when we met, and I'm just going to say it. I'd never know. Really, Christine says, unable to stop herself greedily absorbing the reassurance from someone outside her sisterly circle. That she'd been struggling with her womanhood when she first met Hassan is not part of the lie, although she wishes it was. It was her first time off campus as a woman. Her already shaky confidence took a fatal knock when a drunk man on the train clocked her, shouted at her, and pursued her, Indira, and their friends through 2 carriages before they could find a member of staff to officially encourage him to please, sir, sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up. Christine arrived in London in tears and will forever feel a little guilty that the first time Indira's mother got to see her daughter alive and well, she was also busy comforting a crying, insecure little thing who wasn't even sure back then if she was a woman at all. Sad girl on her dress. Really, he says it sincerely, kindly, like he knows how much it means to her. Thank you, Christine says, pushing the warmth into the words and by pitching down and expending a little effort to move her voice from its usual slightly lazy top of the throat position to the front of her mouth. That sort of intonation can, with enough breath behind it, fill a cathedral, or the large bathrooms attached to the Saints Rec Centre where Christine did a lot of her voice training after hours. And you do too. Look great. I mean, like, really, really good. He's dressed semi-formal, but the shirt is fitted and he has a great figure underneath. He's tall, taller than Indira, who, like most Dorley women, is taller than average. And the way he casually embraces his girlfriend makes Christine's throat tighten whenever she thinks about it. He probably makes Indira feel so safe. Hassan gives her a mock bow, the deepest he can manage without dislodging Dira, who is absorbing their conversation with obvious and slightly tipsy pleasure. Indira considers Christine to effectively be her family, and has suggested that if she ever wants to consider the Chetri family officially her own, all she has to do is ask. Asha, Indira's mother, asks after Christine weekly, and occasionally shyly forwards memes to her newest daughter's sister on WhatsApp, along with local gossip and sincere encouragement. Christine, who never wants to see her own family again, who doesn't bother checking the info packs on them anymore, has considered asking several times. After a few minutes of small talk, Dira excuses herself to the bathroom and Hassan leads forward, close enough to Christine to touch her, and says quietly, "Thank you for being there for her. I think she really needed someone like you. Getting to be your big sister, having you be hers." He glances towards the bathroom, smiling. "It's been healing for her. She never had that growing up. Just a lot of heartache that none of us could ever seem to resolve. Sidji loves her, of course, but he didn't even know she was still alive, let alone her sister and not her brother, until last year. So, Christine, thank you." He stands up and holds open his arms, inviting Christine to step into his embrace. She does so, grateful for the excuse not to look at his beautiful, kind face. She hates the lies so much. Can't imagine ever feeling comfortable around them for all that they are necessary, and for Indira, freeing. She can be free to be with her childhood crush. She can be a sister to Sidji and a daughter to her mother and her father. She can be alive. And all it takes is a handful of falsehoods. Indira was always a girl. She ran away out of fear. She chose this. The smallest price to pay for so much happiness. Christine hugs him more tightly. A silent apology. "I was lucky she found me," Christine says, taking refuge in the lies and absolute honesty. "She changed my life. Saved it, probably. And you," she adds. They separate and they return to their seats. "Look at you. Last time I saw you in the flesh, you were wearing that huge coat and making shy eyes at her from across the garden, asking me to ask her if she could possibly maybe happen to remember Hassan, the boy from 3 floors down, who thinks she just looks gorgeous." He laughs. "I was lucky too. Lucky she remembered me. Lucky she was interested in me. Lucky I didn't take the overseas job and stayed home. When I heard she was alive, when I heard she was her." His smile deepens as, on cue, Indira returns from the bathroom, Abby in tow, who perches herself at Hassan's knee again, encircling him in her arms. "What were you talking about?" she says. Hassan kisses her. "You? And I really hate to do this." He places a hand on each of Dira's hips and lifts her off his lap. Christine's throat tightens again. "But now I have to visit the little boy's room." They watch him go. "Goodness, I love that boy. He's absolutely smitten with you." Dira can't stop the giggle from bubbling up. "I know, I'm so lucky." "Yeah, we talked about your luck. You seem to bring it with you." "Glad to be of service," she says, taking Christine's first 2 fingers, the ones that twitch, and gently massaging them. "He's always been kind, you know," she continues, looking away, living somewhere in the part of her past that Christine doesn't ask about. "Even when we were kids. Even when I wasn't always so kind in return." She shakes her head. "Of course, these days, he says he must have always known that I was a girl, deep down. That's why he was so drawn to me." "Why do you think he was drawn to you?" "He's a lot like you, Christine. He can't bear to see someone in pain." "God, Dira, I hate lying to him." Indira reaches to her glass, refilled by Hassan while she was away. "If, knowing everything, I'd go back and do it all again, then are they really lies?" I'm not sure. I know you're the same. I know the things you regret all took place before you came here." "Mostly," Christine says. Dira applies gentle pressure to the tips of her fingers, rolls them down, and draws out from Christine something that's been lurking inside her since she talked to Faye. "I'd be less of a bitch if I got to do it all again. I'd yell at you less, cooperate a bit more, a bit earlier. I made life so difficult for you for a while." Indira laughs quietly. "That would have been nice. You called me such terrible things." Christine leans forward, balls her hand into a fist, gathering Dira's fingers inside it and squeezing. "I'm really sorry. I was awful to you. I love all the things that make you, you, Teeny. Even the things you'd rather forget. I've never once been anything other than glad that I was chosen to be your sponsor. Actually, Christine says, you might want to chat with Aunt B soon then. Oh? You're getting new responsibilities. You're officially relieved of the burden of Christine Hale. Oh, sweetie, I'm so proud of you. She hooks her free hand around Christine's shoulder and pulls on Christine's fingers, still grasping, drawing her up and into her arms. You've become an amazing woman. I wouldn't be here without you, Christine replies, not knowing if she means I wouldn't be a girl without you or I wouldn't be alive without you. Both are Indira's gifts to her, and she cherishes them. And you were never a burden, Christine. Never, ever. That's something Christine could stand to hear more often. Dira gives her a final squeeze. I'm going to talk to Aunt B before Hassan gets back. If they come around with the starters, make sure we both get one. You know what I like? He likes the same. She pecks Christine lightly on the back of her jaw. Kiss, kiss. Kiss, Christine whispers back, pressing her cheek hard against her sister's. Blinking clears her eye. So, Hassan seems like a nice guy, Paige says quietly to Christine. Christine says, mouth full. Unlike Paige, who's been on a diet since the start of the second year, Christine maintains her usual weight by forgetting to eat some days. So when something gets put in front of her that's actually pretty good, she'll generally eat and keep eating until every plate in the local area is clear. She picked the curry for her main course. Given the choice, Christine will always pick the curry. And it's a lot better than she could have made with the same ingredients. Definitely better than what her cohort managed last year. Oh yeah, he's sweet, right? He likes you a lot, Paige continues, gently elbowing her gently in the ribs. Hey, Christine says, be careful with the bits of me that have food in them. They might burst. Pig, Paige says with a grin. Christine replies by leaning in close and doing her best porcine impression, which causes Paige to respond in kind and the rest of the table to give them an interesting selection of looks. When she eventually finds her dinner straining against the fabric of her fairly snug dress, she sits back and surveys the room. They aren't the only friend group that staked out one of the smaller tables in the corners. On the far side, Jody from down the hall, who spots Christine looking at her and exchanges waves, sits in a surprisingly colourful dress with her sponsor, Donna, and some of their friends. At least one of them isn't a Dorley girl, and thus is probably a vampire enthusiast. Looking harder, Christine recognizes Sem from Jody's World of Darkness streams, and catches Jody leaning over and pointing her out. Another wave. She should probably go and say hi, ask where Say got see a vampire teeth. After most of the smaller tables host people Christine doesn't know, or knows only by face. Graduates, probably, who live upstairs, off campus, or away from Armsworth, having moved on from Saints as well as Dorley. People who live in the real world. Scary. Faye and Rebecca catch her sweeping the room, and Christine waves again. In the middle, at the largest table, with Aunt B at its head, are most of the sponsors and whose charges are unable to participate in the birthday event due to being locked up in the basement. There's also a scattering of women and non-binary people who Christine mostly knows or knows of, the terminally Dorleyed, the ones who haven't left, the ones who can't bring themselves to leave, or return every chance they get. It's like Lorna said once, when all your friends are queer, you forget how to relate to cisheads. What if all your friends were re-socialized in a secret underground facility? Pippa, sitting near Maria and looking somewhat overwhelmed, catches her eye and makes a please come over hand gesture, hidden by her body so only Christine can see. Paige is busy discussing with Abby her plans to start learning self-defense. Christine makes a mental promise to herself to speculate, both to show her support and enjoy watching this svelte, delicate-seeming Paige kick a succession of unsuspecting men in the face. So Christine just pokes her until she moves her chair out of the way and gets up to see what Pippa needs her for. At the central table, Maria is holding court, gesturing with a fork and complaining about her research supervisor. Every time he pulls me up on something stupid or for being 5 minutes late, I get a little bit tempted to maybe possibly bop him on the head, drag him here. Maria, Eddie says, with leaning both elbows on the table and looking at least as full as Christine feels. Are you saying you want to force feminize your supervisor because he's pissing you off? A little bit, yeah. Maria thinks forced feminization is the solution to all of her problems. Maria shrugs sheepishly. When all you have is a hammer. Hi, Christine, Pippa says brightly, before another of the assembled sponsors can say something disturbing. You wanted a word, yeah? She cocks an eyebrow. Yeah, Christine says, recognizing someone who needs a break. You want to come over? We have room. Don't think Dira and Histan are going to stick around for dessert anyway. Oh, Christine, Aunt B says, while Pippa rounds up a wine glass and a purse. Could you ask Indira to bring Hassan over before they retire? I would very much like to meet him. Warn him, at least three sponsors say, almost in unison, collapsing into giggles at their shared hilarity. Hey, Christine says, pointing at the table, taking advantage of her light drunkenness to be mildly rude to people who still could technically order her around and expect to be obeyed. Don't be rude when he comes over. He's a lovely man. Don't scare him. Maria sits up from her slouch and drags Eddie back up with her. Best behavior, she promises. Best behavior, Christine repeats, and escorts Pippa back to their significantly less raucous table. Jesus, she mutters when they're out of earshot. They're all so drunk. Pippa snorts and nods. She drops into a spare chair at Christine's table. It's like Christmas with the extended family, she says. And that's the table where all the embarrassing aunts get quarantined. And all they talk about when they're not being rude is work, 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 work. She glances at Hassan, who's watching with polite interest. Schoolwork, I mean. I thought tonight was about to be getting away from all that. I think they're all a bit institutionalized, Christine says, sitting back down next to Paige, who immediately leans her head on Christine's shoulder. Christine playfully pushes her off. Paige pretends to take offense and goes back to talking to Abby. They're the ones who should be able to leave, but don't, Vicky says, looking up from her phone. She smirks and adds, the living failures. Paige turns around. Vic, I know for a fact that's a Bloodborne reference. Stop it. Paige, I know you miss your girlfriend. But you're seeing her tomorrow night, so stop texting her and be sociable. Don't wanna. Oh, Vicky adds, consenting to lay her phone on the table, but not actually turn off the screen. Still coming, right, Tina? Tomorrow? Christine asks. Lona's thing? Yeah, I remember. And yes, I'm coming. Pippa, who is suddenly directing all her attention towards playing with her bracelet, prompts Christine to give Vicky a meaningful look. Pippa, Vicky says, picking up on it. Want to come? Tomorrow night? Clubbing? Just us Dorley girls. And my girlfriend. Really? Pippa says, I'd love to. Come to Vicky's room on the second floor. We're getting ready there. Except Vicky, because she doesn't actually live in her room anymore. Pippa nods vigorously, which helps hide her startled reaction when Hassan leads across the table to talk to her. I'm Hassan, he says. I'm hers. He points to the side where Indira, Paige, and Abby are all having an animated discussion. Pippa, she says, I'm a friend of... I know Christine. Christine elbows her. She's my friend, she says, and throws in a glare for good measure. Pippa flushes, and Christine wonders how close she is with others from her intake. Probably not very. Most of them fled the nest, choosing to finish their degrees away from the hole that made them. Hints dropped by one of the other ones who stayed and who pops down to the kitchen every so often suggest to Christine that Pippa's cohort had a rather tense time of it in general. 3 washouts. Scary stuff. Exactly how lonely has she been all this time? Christine has barely seen Pippa talk to anyone who wasn't Aunt B or another sponsor, now that she comes to think about it. Then there's her bracelet, the one she always wears. The one she's still wearing tonight, even though it clashes with her dress. The one she's slowly turning around on her wrist as she talks to Hassan. Very much like the bracelets that she and Indira share. Only the owner of the twin to Pippa's doesn't know if she's alive or dead. God fucking damn it, Christine. Why'd you have to go and dump a problem like Steph in this girl's lap? I'm studying philosophy, Pippa's saying to Hassan. It's not been so bad up until now, but this year, all of a sudden, it's been confusing, difficult, and I don't know how to respond to it. Hassan leans further forward, bringing Indira's hand, enmeshed with his own, with him. Indira laughs and disentangles herself, kissing her boyfriend on the cheek as he does so. Pippa, looking inward, doesn't notice, just continues talking almost to herself. I wasn't going to do it this year. 3rd year uni is hard enough as it is, you know? But she asked me to be on standby, just in case, and when it looked like it wasn't going to happen, so I was so relieved. And then suddenly, all this responsibility just drops in my lap and I'm running around with no idea what I'm doing, except that I'm doing it all wrong. That sounds rough, Hassan says. Which module is this for? It's a group project, Abby says, switching chairs next to Pippa and taking her by the hand. And it's a hard one. Why don't you let me help you, Pip, like I did earlier? All you have to do is ask, and I talk to your supervisor. Make it official. Pippa closes her eyes, exhausted, and leans gratefully against Abby's shoulder. I'm asking, she whispers. Yeah, well fucking done, Christine. As predicted, Indira and Hassan make their excuses before dessert, as do several others. The second years are permitted to stay and enjoy their own cakes. No less delicious for being probably quite violently made, but are gently encouraged to leave by some of the more sober sponsors before Aunt B's specialty coffees come out. Faye and Rebecca excuse themselves from the frankly adorable procession of new girls and trot over to where Christine and Paige have been roped into the effort to drag all the remaining tables into the center of the room. I wanted to say hi, Rebecca says in a clear, high-pitched voice, more developed than Faye's. Either her sponsor okayed the voice surgery that Dorley occasionally hands out, or she's been training her voice longer than the rest of her cohort. And thank you, to you, Paige, for making Effie look so beautiful. You're quite welcome, Paige says, strangely formal. And to you, Christine, for helping her. She told me all about you. Lost for platitudes in the face of someone so genuine, Christine resorts to a curtsy. She's been relying on these too much lately, but Aunt B seems to like them, and Paige's bloody butterfly dress is so tight around the hips it's almost the only maneuver she can reliably perform. Thanks, Christine, Faye says, for everything. Is it okay if I contact you sometime? Anytime, Christine says, more than at home with Faye's nervous stammer than Rebecca's sincerity. She rattles off her consensus IDs and starts reciting her phone number until Paige reminds her that second years don't have fully enabled phones. Oh, I was going to forward you all the terrible memes that Dearest Mum sends me. Dearest Mum? Faye asks. She's allowed to talk to her family. That, Christine says firmly, is a long conversation for another day. Ask me in consensus. Oh, okay. Paige, when should I give the dress back? Do you like it? Paige says. Faye glances shyly at Rebecca before answering. Yes. Then it's yours. Paige's reply prompts an excited hug from Faye and a small amount of commotion from Rebecca, which continues until Bella, Rebecca's sponsor, arrives to drag them up to bed. Bella shoots a smile at Christine and mouths, "Thank you." And Christine, unaccustomed to so much gratitude in one night, replies with a hesitant nod. God, they're cute, aren't they? Paige says, as they take their seats around the newly enlarged central table, between Pippa on Christine's left and Abby on Paige's right. Christine avoids Aunt B's knowing grin and replies, yeah, they kind of are. Hard to believe that we were ever like that. That was only a year ago for you, Maria points out, sounding a little more sober. Seems like longer. I don't know why we bother with the basement at all, Abby says. Just give them to Paige for an hour and they'll walk out the door the most enthusiastic women you ever saw. Well, Maria starts, but she's cut off by Aunt B, tapping a coffee spoon at the side of her mug, calling for attention. Good evening, ladies, she says, and smoothly adds when someone at the other end of the table coughs, and non-binary individuals, thank you all for coming, and thank you all for staying with me to ride out this long evening to its end. I know some of you had no choice, she smiles at Maria sitting at her side, who rolls her eyes and noisily slurps on her coffee, undercutting whatever gravitas B was trying to add to the moment. But the rest of you did, and you stayed anyway. My special thanks go to those who have returned from far afield. Several people, including the ones who coughed, raised glasses and coffee cups, and those who are yet to graduate from our program. Surprised murmurs from the far end. B points her spoon at Christine. Christine Hale and Paige Adams. Thank you both for indulging an aging woman on her birthday. Shit, they really are the only non-graduates at the table, aren't they? Hey, she says, pointing around to Paige to Abby. I just go where she goes. Polite laughter ripples across the table. And you, Miss Adams? Aunt B says. Paige points at Christine. I go where she goes. Christine slaps her ankle against Paige's, lightly enough to keep from hurting her, but hard enough to say, hey. Paige responds by hooking her ankle around Christine's. Unexpected. When Christine looks at her, Paige looks back with a somewhat intense and only slightly unsteady expression. And an honourable mention, of course, Aunt B says, to Victoria Robinson, our first 2-year graduate in quite some time. There are one or two gasps at this time. Vicky, much more accustomed to attention than Christine, accepts a smattering of applause and says, well, the sales pitch was just so good. Has everyone taken public speaking lessons except Christine, or is this just something she's expected to be good at by now? She covers her continued embarrassment by diverting her attention to the coffee in front of her, which is definitely better than the stuff out of the coffee maker in the kitchen. Aunt B draws all attention back to her when she continues. As many of you know, this is an important year for me. Not only is this my 55th birthday, but it also marks 15 years since my predecessor officially handed control to me. I know not many of you were raised under grandmother's hand. Is it Christine's imagination, or did Maria just flinch? But I like to think that my modernizing touches and adjustments to our recruitment parameters have not only improved our retention rate, but the well-being and overall happiness of our girls. Another cough. And non-binary individuals. Thank you, Amethyst, again for the welcome reminder. Across the table, Amethyst, dressed for their name in a dark tuxedo and a purple bow tie, says, "You're quite welcome, Beatrice." Christine almost inhales her coffee. She's never heard Aunt B addressed by her full forename before. She wasn't even sure she had one. Clearly, when one has been away from Dorley for many years, one becomes cheeky. "And what are your pronouns, my dear?" "Quite mundane, I promise you. They, them." "Wonderful," Aunt B says. "Do you have anyone else here tonight with shall we say, pronouns other than the traditional?" Another group of Amethyst friends hold up their hand. "I'm a she, they now, actually." "Oh, and how does that work?" Whether from alcohol, tiredness, or whatever's in the coffee she can't stop drinking, Christine has lost the ability to tell whether Aunt B is being genuine, but as Amethyst's friend continues as if she's been asked a serious question. "Some days I feel more like a she, other days a they. If on a particular day I have a strong preference, I'll tell my friends, but otherwise I'm happy with either pronoun set." She pauses to listen to Amethyst whisper something in her ear. "That's just how it works for me, by the way. I know a couple of she-theys who take a different approach." How fascinating. I know, gender is fun, isn't it? That is not what Aunt B says gravely, the official position of Dorley Hall. "You know what? Back when I lived here, that serious face of yours used to scare me. But I'm worthy now. I can see the grin you're holding back." "Don't know what you're talking about." "You're just a big shit poster, aren't you?" "Margaret," Aunt B says, dropping into a slightly more severe tone of voice, "please remember there are girls here who are still supposed to be intimidated by me." "Ah, still joking then," Christine entirely genuinely says. "Don't worry, I definitely still am." "Bless you, child. And you, Margaret, are you feeling she or they today?" Standing up to reveal a glowing red dress with crystalline details and twirling around, raising the hem above her knees, dress goes spinny, Christine remembers. Margaret says, "Today I am emphatically a she." This prompts conversation amongst a half-dozen people at Amethyst and Margaret's end of the table, and Aunt B, wisely, decides that her speech has thus concluded. She exchanges a few murmurs with Maria before addressing Christine and Paige as one. "How about you two?" she says. "Will either of you be adopting new pronouns when you graduate?" "No," Paige says. "I've examined myself thoroughly." She's definitely had a bit more alcohol than Christine. She's stumbling over the multisyllabic words. "And determined myself to be, socially, rather binary. I don't expect my pronouns to change anytime soon." She frowns. "I don't like the way I have to have strangers think I'm a cis woman, though, but there's nothing I can do about that. I've already established myself that way. I'm kind of stuck with it." "Just say you're AFAB," Maria says. "You don't have to tell them that the B stands for basement." Eddie, sat on Maria's side, delivers a mild tap to the side of Maria's head. Deserved. Apparently the studious and sensible senior sponsor develops a bit of a mouth when she's had a drink. "And you, Christine?" Well, Christine shrugs. "This is, at least, easy. I'm a girl," she says. "Sometimes a tomboy, sometimes a girly girl. Always a girl, though. A she-her." In Aunt B's widening smile, Christine reads pleasure, possibly relief. "Not quite as tolerant as you try to be, are you? Newfangled pronouns sticking a little in your gut, are they?" Paige, perhaps seeing the same thing, nudges Christine's foot again, as if to say, "At least she's trying." Christine suddenly has to hold back laughter, imagining the headline, "Diversity win! Kidnapper respects your pronouns." Aunt B moves on to Pippa next, and Christine feels the girl tense up when the questions start. Pippa gives a rough rundown of Steph's stay in the basement up to this point and repeats some of her frustration. She admits to Aunt B and the table, as she had obliquely to Hassan, that she's feeling overwhelmed. Towards the end of her summary, Aunt B reaches over to take her hand, and Christine feels Pippa go from tense to completely immobile. "We are so grateful that you stepped up, Pippa," Aunt B says, "and I'm aware that your plate is rather full. What with your final year studies, as well as your duties as sponsor." She takes a sip of coffee. "We'll have Maria assist you, when needed. She is the most experienced, and many of her overall responsibilities have been shifted, as of now, onto Indira." Pippa says, Abby pipes up. "Actually, Aunt B, I was going to offer my support. I'm available to spend a lot more time here and..." "Nonsense," Aunt B says. "Your offer is greatly appreciated, Abigail, but you have your career to think of. Maria's is happily based on campus, but, and might I remind you that your sponsorship methods are singular. Should young Stefan require a firm hand, could we trust you to administer one? Maria has much more experience in tailoring her approach. She's saying I'm a bitch, Maria staved whispers from the back of her hand. Aunt B rolls her eyes. You young people do persist in putting the most awful words in my mouth. Yeah, Maria says, pretending misery. I'm a bitch. Eddie comforts her. Pippa, my dear, Aunt B says, are you happy with this arrangement? I am, she says. Thank you, Aunt B. It can't only be Christine who hears the tension in her voice, can it? She's bringing the conversation to the quickest close she can manage. She wants to reach out and reassure her, but doesn't know her well enough to predict her reaction to that. When the conversation resumes around the table, though, Christine feels Pippa relax and engages her on a deliberately light-hearted topic. Hey, Abby says a little while later, leaning around to speak to Pippa. Where's Monica? I wanted to talk to her. Oh, it's her boy, Declan. He got to 3 strikes today, so she left after the main course. 3 strikes? Already? A sponsor's work is never done, Paige says, and finishes her coffee. My house is your house, Christine says, pushing open her bedroom door of the flat with her bare foot and throwing her shoes in the rough direction of the wardrobe. Are you sure this isn't a bother? Vicky says. You can still sleep in your room, Vic, Paige says, closing the door behind them and immediately stepping out of her dress. If you don't want to implode. No, Christine says, leaning against the wall and declining to undress until the room consents to stop slowly rotating. Her room is cold, it's lonely, and it's full of your clothes, Paige. Vicky, by the time coffees were polished off and a third round of sherries politely refused, declined from morose to depressed, and had all but outright asked if she could stay in Christine's room rather than sleep alone. Paige made an acid comment about how she ought to be able to cope for just one more night till Lorna returns from her parents' place, but Christine insisted. Vicky gets scared sometimes, more so when she's alone, and the last thing she wants is the girl having a crisis born of alcohol and loneliness and no one there to help her. When the 3 of them left the dining hall, arm in arm, Christine glanced back and took in one last glance of Aunt B's satisfied expression and Pippa, surrounded by empty chairs, watching them walk away. Reminds me, Christine mutters and pulls out her phone. Hey, can you check on Pippa for me? It's dawning me that she has no friends, and I'd look after her myself, but my room is absolutely chock full of girls. Will do. And chock full of girls, eh? Don't do anything I wouldn't do. You mean sleep? Maybe drool a bit? That's the extent of my plans. Abby, that sounds so hot. Christine, horny jail. Population, you. Thanks, though. You do too much for me. I'm doing this for Pippa. Say goodnight to the girls for me. Abby says goodnight, Christine says, throwing her phone back in her bag and her bag onto the desk. Paige, unsteadily crossing the room in her underwear, leans down and says, "Goodnight, Abby," to the phone, before placing her hands on each side of Christine's waist, turning her around and unzipping her dress. "Thanks, Paige," Christine says. "Oh, Vic," she adds as Vicky finishes dropping the component parts of a two-piece outfit onto hangers. "Spare toothbrushes are in the cupboard under the sink." Vicky flashes her a thumbs up and makes it through the door to the ensuite on a second go. Paige makes impatient motions with her hands that Christine eventually interprets as a request to step out of her unzipped dress. They manage to get both their dresses back into the garment bags and hung on the wardrobe door before the alcohol in Paige's bloodstream gets the better of her and she staggers, almost falling. "Whoa there," Christine says, looping an arm around her and positioning one of Paige's around her shoulders. "Let's get your teeth brushed and then we can all sleep this off. Vic, a little help?" Between the three of them, they manage to pilot Paige from bathroom to bed, and they both fall in next to her, Christine in the middle. "Thanks, Tina," Vicky whispers, blowing her a kiss and turning over her face to the window. Almost immediately, her breathing turns heavy and regular. And she's out like a light. "You okay, Paige?" "I'm fine," she stutters, shuffling under the covers and looping one of her legs over Christine's. They're both still wearing the sparkly stockings, and the sensation is strange. Paige?" "Sleep," Paige suggests, and folds an arm under Christine's bosom. It's not long before her grip goes slack and she starts to snore, the same soft growl that Christine remembers. It takes her a while to sleep, but the curtains are open and the stars are out, so Christine counts the lights in the sky and considers with Paige's arm around her and Vicky's cold foot occasionally lightly kicking her in the knee. How little she deserves the bounty she's been handed, and how lucky she is to be here to receive it. End of chapter 10.